Which is worse, a somewhat average game in a somewhat good series, or a flat out mediocre game in an extraordinary series? Just Cause was never top tier. It has bordered on great with Just Cause 2, but it was never the game. Mafia, on the other hand, was the game for almost 14 years from its inception. Then Mafia 3 came along and it was a letdown in almost every way. So let's pit Just Cause 4 and Mafia 3 against each other and pick a winner, the worst game of the two. Let's start with their high points, the plot in Mafia and chaos in Just Cause. Just Cause is designed in a way that allows players every opportunity to destroy, blow, shoot. But if the player decides to ignore all those chances and play like any other game with a psychotic protagonist, then the game starts to feel like an absolute chore. I mean, if you aren't creative or don't know how to use the grappling hook with the environment and other tools, the game is painfully boring. But that's your fault for not playing it like it's supposed to be played, because it looks fun when played by the right player. I can't tell from experience because I belong to those with the lack of creativity. Then in combat, the most I can think of is tethering cars and choppers to a wall or the ground. This is one of those games where learning to play it properly is important. Skipping tutorials and thinking you'll wing it is not the best approach. If you do that, you'll probably end up using only guns, and the gunplay in Just Cause is as fluid as Cyberpunk on a base Xbox One. It isn't pretty. There is no control, you just shoot and hope it hits the target. And even shooting feels like firing a BB gun or worse. There is no power or the illusion of power, but the explosions look cool, so who cares? Guns are the least fun part of combat. The secret formula to have fun is creativity, explosives, grappling hooks, and some more grappling hooks. The formula to not have fun is hide behind cover and use guns only. Mafia's strength is and has always been its story. The 3 installments might vary in other aspects, but the story more or less has always been the high point. That's the case with Mafia 3, even though I feel Mafia 1 and 2 have the more intriguing plot. The fact that the gameplay is so repetitive and stale, it kind of takes focus away from the plot. Siding with different people can be very interesting at times. The setting and the time period only help matters. Lincoln Clay is a different kind of protagonist. Tommy was an outsider, which was new and brought a lot of unique gameplay elements. Him adjusting to that way of life, starting out doing grunt work and rising in the ranks is something not every game lets you do. Vito was an inside player, so that gave us an inside look at the organization and its politics. He wasn't a common soldier in the Mafia either. In fact, he was pretty close to the top by the end, which was interesting because we got to see the intricate plays at the top, the subtle betrayals, ploys and all that, which is one of the more interesting aspects of the Mafia lore. Mafia 3 tackles the Mafia stuff along with family issues, racial issues and a whole lot of mini politics as well. The execution isn't the best, but if you just look at the story, it's still pretty great. Now on to the weaker parts, and believe me, there are a ton of things in both games that could be categorized as bad or weak or awful or boring or repetitive. Just Cause 4 is about one thing and everything that isn't that thing is bad. From the story to mission structure to gunplay, that might not sound like a lot, but when there's no real variety in missions, and even when you do those missions, gunplay isn't all that fun, and to top it all off, there is no real story. It's a bit of a problem. It's a game that runs on your creativity. In other words, it isn't fun on its own. The lack of a compelling story is fine, especially in these types of games. We have come to expect that, but when the game is all about blowing stuff up, and a major part of that, guns aren't fun to handle, that's a huge letdown. The lack of variety in missions is frustrating. Considering the game allows you to literally do anything, you'd expect missions to use that. But as I said, you need to be creative to find the fun in the game. Most missions usually involve you going to one or the other enemy camp and destroy something, and of course there's a whole army and a bunch of choppers that you need to get past. The game, to its credit, doesn't limit you. You can take whatever approach you want. For the first 10 hours, the game is exhilarating. But after you have exhausted all your approaches, it's a real grind. For such a fun game, Just Cause is almost unreplayable. I have spent a lot of time with Just Cause 2, 3 and 4, but I don't think I've ever replayed any one. Anyway, to summarize, a weak story, total freedom and clunky weapons. Mafia 3 is average at a lot of gameplay elements. They aren't downright bad, but they aren't great either. Cars, combat, graphics all fall into that category. Cars are near uncontrollable. You don't drive them, they just float around aimlessly. In most games, even if driving is ordinary, it's still fun, but here it's just frustrating. Combat has always been a hit or miss in the series. Neither 1 or 2 will blow your mind in this area, and Mafia 3 follows that trend. Only games in 2016 have mostly figured out combat, so Mafia ends up playing catch up for the most part, and because its peers are so good, the game really sticks out. Another thing that really sticks out is its visuals. For a AAA game released in 2016, it is downright average. I mean, Uncharted 4, The Witcher 3, Bloodborne, Metal Gear Solid 5, Watch Dogs 2 came out before Mafia and look way better. The lighting especially is weird. Transition between day and night is really rough and noticeable. The thing is, after Mafia 2, which to put it lightly, is one of the best looking games of the Xbox 360 era, Mafia 3 is a letdown. That seems to be a trend, doesn't it? Compared to its predecessors, it doesn't live up, much like a child growing up in the shadow of his or her overachieving elder sibling. Mafia 3 is not as good as its older brothers, and no, it's not because of nostalgia or anything. All this is my opinion, of course, but having said that, it does enough to beat Just Cause 4, the winner in this comparison of which game is worse. Just Cause 4 is a fun game that will always entertain, granted you know how to play it, but after the shine wears off, you see the game for what it is, a one-dimensional game that isn't all that great at what it's supposed to be. The fact that the series has remained the same for so long doesn't help either. Just Cause is a 5 out of 10 game, Mafia 3 is a 6 out of 10 at best, so it's not like Mafia completely destroys Just Cause. If you like this one, make sure to subscribe to catch future uploads, like, comment, and thanks for watching and see you next time.